Hello dear students, I am back with another chapter revision, that is how do organisms reproduce. In this chapter you have to study about the asexual and sexual mode of reproduction along with the importance of reproduction. What is the importance of reproduction? Reproduction is an essential life process which helps in the survival of a particular species. And what is species? Species is a group of similar kind of individuals, right? So, reproduction is the only life process which helps in the development of same kind of individuals from their parents which are physically independent of their parents. The basic process that occurs during reproduction is the cell division, which in turn divided into two basic sub-processes. One is the division of nucleus and the other is the division of cytoplasm. In case of division of nucleus, what happens? Whatever the DNA content they have, it is divided into two equal parts. And after that, it is followed by division of cytoplasm, in which the cytoplasmic content is also divided into two equal parts and it will be transferred to the progeny. If we ask what are the different modes of reproduction, modes of reproduction means methods by which an organism reproduce. On the basis of the number of parents involved, they are mainly categorized into two types. One is the asexual mode of reproduction and the other is the sexual mode of reproduction. In case of asexual mode, single parent is required. That means it is uniparental. In case of sexual reproduction, two parents are required. That's why it is written here biparental. One male and the other one should be female. In case of asexual mode, it is usually followed by mostly unicellular organisms and few of the multicellular organisms, whereas the sexual mode of reproduction is only followed by multicellular organisms. Whatever happens in asexual or sexual mode, there is the involvement of gametes. Gametes are the reproductive cell structures which are directly involved in the formation of new progeny or the offspring, followed by fertilization process. These both, gamete formation and fertilization, occurs only in case of sexual reproduction. In case of asexual, no formation of gamete or no fertilization occurs. Fine. Now, if somebody asks you in any question, it comes कि जो progeny है whether they are similar to their parents or not. In case of sexual mode of reproduction, progenies are similar to their parents. Apparently, they show various variations. Variations are the differences which we see among our sister and brother. ठीक है, जिसके बेसिस पर हम एक दूसरे को आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं. These are the variations and these variations usually develop in case of sexual reproduction. But what happens in case of asexual? Because single parent is divided into two equal parts so that their progenies are genetically on the basis of genetic content and on the basis of appearance they are identical to their parents. So such progenies are called as clone. ठीक है. Now we have to study about the asexual mode of reproduction, various natural methods and few artificial methods. According to NCERT, we will study. So in case of fission, one is the fission where we have to study about the two different types, binary and multiple fission. Budding, fragmentation, regeneration. Very important thing is that you have to learn the examples of all these processes. Next is the spore formation and vegetative propagation. If you are unable to learn anything about these, at least learn the examples which are followed by respective processes. Next, we are having the artificial methods of reproduction. Three more methods: grafting, layering, and tissue culture. Though most probably in case of your NCERT, tissue culture will be asked in your exam. Let's come to the natural mode of reproductions. So first of all, we are having the fission. What is fission? Fission is simply the splitting of parent cell. Splitting of parent cell. If parent is splitted into two parts, it is known as binary fission. And if it is split into more than two parts, it is known as multiple fission. Okay. So in case of binary fission, what happens? The parent cell splits itself into two daughter cells. And सबसे important thing है, it is occurring under favorable condition. When the parent get matured, it will be divided into two equal parts. ठीक है, in this case you have to learn about the plane of divisions and which organism is doing binary fission. So amoeba, it's an irregular body structure, that's why it can be divided into two equal parts from any plane. Planaria and leishmania both divides longitudinally, and the paramecium and euglena, they will be not euglena, only the paramecium divides through transverse plane. Fine. In case of asexual mode of reproduction, very much you have to consider over the diagrams. So here we are having the parent cell. On maturity, it will be divided into two parts. So for being divided into two parts, the first of all nucleus division starts, and after that cytoplasmic content division, then a constriction begins, and the cell will be split up into two daughter cells. What happens in case of multiple fission? In case of multiple fission, parent cell split itself into more than two equal parts under favorable or unfavorable condition. Binary fission was occurring under only favorable condition. Multiple fission can occur under favorable as well as unfavorable condition. Fine. So here we have the example Plasmodium, the malarial parasite. Okay, this malarial parasite can infect our blood cells as well as the liver cells. Very important speciality of malarial parasite is that whenever it enters into your blood, it will form a cyst around itself to protect itself from WBC's effect. So that's why it is mentioned here कि जो multiple fission perform करते हैं, they reproduce under unfavorable condition too. Under unfavorable condition, they are forming cyst around them. Fine. Next is the budding. Budding, it's a kind of reproduction where a bud-like outgrowth arises on the parent body, and this bud is usually smaller than the parent. It occurs inside yeast and hydra. In case of yeast, what happens? The favorable condition is sugar solution. That's why a question arises in case of NCRT. According to NCRT board, the colonies of yeast fail to multiply in plain water but divide profusely under sugar solution, because sugar solution is its favorable condition. That's why yeast. One more important thing, the bud formation likely to occur from a particular site. So in case of yeast, it will arise from the top. And second thing, unequal division is observed. Unequal division means parent cell and the daughter cell both are not equal in size. Parent cell is larger and the new bud is smaller in size. Fine. So it happens in yeast from the top. Second, in case of hydra, hydra divides from the lower body part. And specific how the bud formation occurs, because due to continuous cell divisions at that particular site, it will rise to the formation of bud. This bud grows in size, taking nutrients from the parents, and as soon as it will become nutritionally sufficient, it gets detached from the parent body. Fine. So you have to remember about budding. A bud-like outgrowth will give rise to progeny. In case of yeast, bud arises from the top, and in hydra from the lower body part. Next is the difference between fission and budding. What is fission? Here, the parent cell disappear after formation of progeny, but in case of budding, parent and progeny both exist. In case of fission, equal cell division occur, but in case of budding, unequal cell division occur usually. Okay, these are the two important differences between fission and budding. Next is the fragmentation. In case of fragmentation, what happens in certain conditions like disturbances, stress, death and decay of older parts, or on maturity, the multicellular filamentous algae Spirogyra divides it into multiple fragments, and each fragment will behave like a new individual. Fine. Next is the regeneration. Regeneration, it's a kind of mode of reproduction where the organism on cutting under unfavorable condition again forms its lost parts and become a new organism. For example, it occurs in planaria and hydra. If planaria is cut into three pieces, planaria, if it is cut into three pieces, each part, each part which is cut, each part will develop its lost parts and become a new individual. It's a kind of method where the organism divides under unfavorable condition. So planaria under favorable condition divides through binary fission and hydra through budding. But under unfavorable condition, they will divide through regeneration. And this regeneration ability is due to the presence of stem cells, which have the ability to develop into new organism. Next we have the spore formation, very much important spore formation, because here this diagram is there. So it occurs in case of rhizopus, and this rhizopus requires two special conditions. One is the moisture and the other is the heat. Another means rhizopus का common name जो है that is bread mold, is usually grows over blood. So in case in this particular part some questions may arise. Name the non-reproductive parts of rhizopus. The non-reproductive part is the hyphae. It is a thread-like structure with the help of which it can stand straight. Next is the reproductive part. Reproductive part is the sporangium. Sporangium which contains spores. The sporangium is thick-walled, which burst only getting favorable condition. And the spore also, whenever it will get moisture and heat, it will regrow into a new organism. Next is the vegetative propagation. It's a process of developing new plants with the help of vegetative parts. The vegetative parts which we usually use is the root, stem and leaf. Okay, in exam generally they ask about the advantages of vegetative propagation. Very much essential advantage is that it is the method for growing seedless plants. Secondly, we can use any vegetative part to propagate a new plant. Third advantage is that in case of vegetative propagation, the fruit or flowering that will occur in case of new plant will be earlier as compared to that of the parent plant. And the four important thing is that this method is usually help to develop genetically similar plants. ठीक है, तो रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट्स आपको कुछ याद रखने पड़ेंगे. यहाँ पे सबसे अच्छा एग्जाम्पल जिसका दिया है आपकी बुक में, दैट इज द ब्रायोफिल्म. उसी के बारे में आपसे पूछा जाएगा, दैट इज द लीफ बड की हेल्प से वो रिप्रोड्यूस करते हैं. तो दीज आर ऑल अवर नेचुरल मेथड्स. Next is our tissue culture, that is the artificial method of propagation. In this case, we also use the small part of plant, and the small part of plant is known as explant. This explant is grown over a nutrient medium in petri dish. Nutrient medium contains all the nutrients which will require for the growth of the plant. So, the tissue culture is the method of producing plants in lab conditions. That's why we get contamination free plant, and that's why only we are able to produce disease free plant through this method. Okay? The tissue culture is also known as micro propagation because very small part of plant is used to develop a new plant. This is very इसकी एडवांटेज है, बहुत ही स्मॉल रूम चाहिए टिश्यू कल्चर परफॉर्म करने के लिए, एंड सेकेंडली दे हेल्प टू डेवलप डिजीज फ्री प्लांट. फाइन. Next, we have to study about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Flowering plants are also considered called as angiosperms. In this, one is the sexuality. Sexuality means organisms can be categorized into two types, unisexual and bisexual. Unisexual with single sexual organ, bisexual with two sexual organs, one male and the other female. Organism on the basis of chromosome number. Organisms can be haploid or diploid. Haploid that bear single set of chromosome like 12, 3, 4, 5 in this manner. Diploid is a double set of chromosome. Double set of chromosome like 23 pair, 4 pair, 6 pairs. In case of humans, we are having 46 chromosome, that means 23 pair of chromosomes. After that, sexually reproducing organisms, how do they maintain their chromosome number in every generation? This question arises very quickly in every board exam. So they are having two different methods. One is the meiosis. With the help of meiosis cell division, they reduce their chromosome number to half, and after that their gametes fuse with each other to form 46 chromosomes, that is their diploid nature. ठीक है, तो meiosis and fertilization are two processes which helps in the formation of constant chromosome number. Next, in the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. In case of plants, you must learn about the parts of flower. Flower parts are basically categorized into two types, accessory parts and the reproductive parts. Accessory parts mean sepals and petals. Sepals are the green parts of flower which protects flower in bud condition. And in case of petals, these are the colored parts which attract insect for pollination. Reproductive parts में stamen है, pistil है. Stamen is the male part and the pistil is the female part. Let's go through the diagram. So here we are having the diagram of a flower, which is a bisexual flower, means male and female part are present in the same flower. So in case of male part, stamen has two main parts. One is the anther and the other one is the filament. And this anther produce pollen grains, and the pollen grains carry the male gamete. Fine. In case of female part, pistil or carpel, it has three main parts. One is the stigma, next is the style, and third is the ovary. Okay, this ovary contains ovules and ovule contains single egg cell. Fine. So what happens? Pollen grains are getting transformed from anther to stigma. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma is known as pollination. If it is occurring in a same one flower, this is known as self-pollination. If it is occurring between two different flowers, it is known as cross-pollination. And cross-pollination is generally achieved with the help of wind, water, or insects. Okay. Next diagram is very much important. In every exam it is asked germination of pollen over stigma. You have to label the diagram. So this is the germinating pollen grain. When specific pollen reaches over stigma, it will develop into a pollen tube. Pollen tube will run into the lower part of the ovary. Pollen tube helps to carry male gamete. This male gamete, after reaching the ovary, fuses with female gamete and forms zygote. Once the zygote is formed, it will undergo repeated divisions to form embryo. Zygote is a single cell structure and embryo is multicellular structure. This multicellular structure once formed, the ovary will transform into fruit and ovule will get transformed into seed. So these two are the post-fertilization changes that occurs in flower. Very much important question. After that, we are having the sexual reproduction in humans. In case of humans, you must learn about the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. So first of all, we will study about the male reproductive system, and here we have the testes. Testis is the primary sex organ which helps in the production of a hormone at puberty. Puberty is the age at which human becomes sexually mature. The testis release testosterone, and this testosterone promote gamete formation and the development of secondary sexual characters. After that, we are having scrotum. The scrotum is a bag-like structure which stores testes, and it acts as a thermoregulator which provides lower temperature for sperm formation. That lower temperature is lower than your normal body temperature. Once the sperms are formed, they will be carried up by vas deferens. The vas deferens can also be called as sperm duct. They will carry the sperms and store them temporarily inside seminal vesicles. After that, seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, they both together secrete an alkaline medium. This alkaline medium contains mucus for making sperms transportation easier. It also contains calcium, enzymes, and a fructose sugar. Fructose for providing energy, and calcium and enzyme for digesting or dissolving the wall of ovum. After dissolving in that fluid, it will move through urethra and come to outside. If anybody asks you the passage of sperm from testis to outside is that, from testis it will move through vas deferens into the seminal vesicles, and from seminal vesicle it will move outside through urethra. And this urethra is guarded by a female external genitalia named as penis, which helps to transfer the male gamete into the female reproductive tract. Next thing that anybody can question you, that is about the male gamete. Male gamete is known as sperm, and the sperm is the small size in nature with less amount of cytoplasm. It has three main parts: head, neck, and tail. Tail helps in motility, neck provides energy, and head contains the enzyme and the haploid nucleus, which contains 23 chromosomes. So this is all about male reproductive system. So now we will study about the female reproductive system. In case of female reproductive system, very much important is that they are having the primary sex organ, ovary. Two ovaries are present, but they are able to produce ovum alternately every month. If left ovary is producing ovum this month, then the next ovary will produce ovum. Ovum is produced single, but sperms are produced in millions number. Ovary is the primary sex organ which helps in secreting a hormone called estrogen, which will promote ovum formation and development of secondary sexual characters. After that, that ovum is collected by oviduct. This oviduct provides a particular site for the fertilization of sperm and ovum. That's why it is also known as site of fertilization. Once the site of fertilization means fertilization is achieved, zygote is formed. That zygote will move into the uterus and attaches over there. After attachment, the single-cell zygote will develop into multicellular structure embryo through repeated cell division. Once the embryo is formed, a disc-like structure formed inside uterus. That disc-like structure is known as placenta, which has villi towards the embryo site and blood spaces towards the mother, and it helps in three functions. One is the nutrition, second is gas exchange, and the third is excretion. Once, in case of uterus, what uterus is also known as womb, where the complete development of embryo takes place. After 9 months, the baby is delivered out through the vagina and cervix, both combinedly called as birth canal. Girls have different openings for the release of urine and for the release of baby. Okay, if zygote formation do not occur, then what happens? Every month, uterus prepares itself to receive fertilized egg. For that, it always becomes thick and spongy and well supplied with blood vessels. If fertilized egg is not received, in that case, all the uh, all the thickened walls they get broken up in the small pieces, and along with blood and mucus and along with unfertilized ovum, all these things release out through vagina in the form of blood and mucus. This is known as menstruation that occurs every month. So two types of questions will be asked in question. What happens if zygote formation occurs, then placenta will be formed. If the zygote formation does not occur, then menstruation occurs. Next topic is the sexually transmitted diseases. Diseases which are transmitted from infected to healthy person through sexual contact. You have to study the two types of diseases, bacterial and viral diseases. Bacterial diseases are gonorrhea and syphilis, viral disease, AIDS, hepatitis B and VARS. In case of AIDS, you must remember you have to write 4 capital letters, AIDS. Next topic is the contraceptive devices, devices to avoid pregnancy. So here we are having barrier device, chemical method, IUCD and surgical method. Barrier device is the device to cover external genital organs. In case of male, it is condoms. In case of females, it is femdoms. Its primary principle is to avoid the meeting of sperm and ovum. So barrier device is the only device which is used by male to prevent contraception. Another thing, barrier device is the only device which gives us protection against STDs. Next is the chemical method. Chemical method or oral pills. Here the pills, the tablets, they are taken orally through mouth. These are the hormonal preparations which helps to prevent ovulation, ovum release. If ovum is not released, sperm will not fertilize ovum. An example for it is Saheli. In case of IUCD method is generally used in India most of the times to space children, to create gap between children. Okay, it's a common method in India. An example for it is copper T. It is placed in uterus to prevent attachment of zygote. Next is the surgical method. It's a permanent method after which parent will not have their kids. So vasectomy, if it is occurring in male, vas deferens is cut and tied. It helps to block the gametes in the testis itself. And for the ovum, we are having ट्यूबेक्टोमी where the oviduct is cut and tied to block the gametes. ठीक है, एसटीडी से प्रोटेक्शन केवल बैरियर डिवाइसेस देती हैं. ओवम को रिलीज होने से रोकना है तो ओरल पिल्स. कॉपर टी क्या करते हैं, इम्प्लांटेशन को प्रिवेंट करते हैं. इम्प्लांटेशन मीन अटैचमेंट ऑफ जाइगोट. And permanent method where the vas deferens is cut, it is known as vasectomy. If the oviduct is cut, it is known as tubectomy. Fine. So this is all about your chapter, how do organisms reproduce. My next video will consider heredity chapter. Thank you.